But when somebody doesn't have a particular like target buck, like this is the one that I'm going after, and they're not hunting the October lull or they're not hunting October mornings, I don't really understand that, you know?
Well, the mornings would be the coolest time of the day,
Yeah.
throughout October, generally.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, why wouldn't you wanna take advantage of that?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. Today I'm joined by my co host, Jake Gaylor. What's going on, dude?
Oh, same old, being, I guess it's getting pretty busy, right? Like, we had a pretty busy September. Now it's finally time for some Oklahoma deer hunting.
I would say that it's cooling off, but if you walked outside, that would be immediately false. It is not cooling off.
So I'm pretty sure the common temperatures in the evening sits so far in these first 7 days that Oklahoma's been in season, it's been in the 90s. So we haven't really had too much of I guess, a cool start to our season. But I don't know how it is there in Texas because you have some Texas tags now, don't you?
I have I got a permit on a lake right here by my house, and I went hunting the other day. Um, it's that part of the season where it's like so miserably hot that you don't even want to go. Like
Hmm.
you take a shower before you go, and then you get back, and you're like, I need 3 to fix this.
Yeah, it's like,
Uh,
why'd I even take a shower?
and the thing is for me is I have to shoot 2 does before I can shoot a buck, and I know that when that good cold front comes, gonna wanna be hunting only bucks, but it's really hard to convince myself to go out when it's literally 90, like, it was 97 the other day, and,
So are you taking advantage of mornings there or no?
I have not hunted a morning yet,
Okay.
just because
Okay.
I just really haven't had the motivation to go out, like, I don't have any cameras out here. I've scouted a lot in the spring and now, and to be honest with you, the top end buck of what I'm finding around here is probably about 130 inches, and I'm like, "Dude, it's
Not
hard to wake
bad.
up," and not bad. Um, it's hard to go out there. I just need to go out and try to shoot a couple does, but the stuff around here is a bunch of like cedars and junipers and rocks, and so I feel like just been playing like hide and go seek with a bunch of does, jumping them and running them around these bedding areas. So
So the main
nowhere
crop out there is basically rocks, like that land grows rocks or no?
rocks and heat. Yeah,
Nice.
if it puts it in any perspective, there's a huge quarry by my house. So
Oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's
kind of
rocks.
makes sense. So have you been seeing any like good sign getting laid down right now or no?
No, nothing.
Nothing.
I'm struggling. It's so dry. I'm struggling to find tracks. Like my sign that I've been seeing is legit deer running away from me on the hoof. Like that's been
Well,
happening a lot lately, but it is what it is. It's early October hunting. What about you? Have you been getting into them?
I mean, as well as I do. I mean, we've had a really busy September, so
Yeah.
we're kind of playing catch up on all ends, whether that be our actual normal nine to fives. Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, we don't really do this to pay our bills. We do this on the side, and we're trying to grow it. So hopefully one day it can pay our bills. But as of right now, we have our normal nine to fives, and then we do this afterwards. So just like tonight, it's 8:30 p.m. on a Monday night, and here we are recording this. But yeah, so we had a super busy September, and now we're kind of trying to play catch up, trying to get everything in order so that way we can go hunt Oklahoma, and especially where we like to hunt on our public piece, kind of where all the pines are. We're trying to get down there as quickly as possible. But as of that, I don't know, a couple pieces of private that I can hunt down here, which they're not really that great as of right now. They're mainly just transition zones from like one thick piece to another thick piece that usually
Good
kind of
rut
gets good.
spots.
Exactly. So right now, I had two cameras out. Both my cameras stopped working. So now I have no cameras out. And so I don't know what's happening right
No,
now.
you have 2
And
SD cameras out.
yeah, I guess they are still collecting intel, aren't they? So
They are, yeah.
yeah, so that's been what's happening now. But this weekend should be different because we're going down Thursday and coming back Sunday. So hopefully we can figure something out then.
Get into something. Yeah, well, speaking of not making money, there's a new format to this podcast. If people are clicking on the
uh,
show, they've probably noticed that there's been some stuff kind of revamped around here, from thumbnails to kind of shortening the intro and segments, and the show's going to look a little different. And speaking of trying to make it better and not doing this full time is we don't want to be just another show. And we're trying to take it a little more seriously in terms of the production quality, the animations, the graphics, the thoughtfulness of the show. And you can hopefully see the fruit of that. And we've been doing a lot of hiring on Fiverr and trying to figure out what we're going to do with the show. So it's going to look a little differently around here. And we are going to mess with, I guess we said we weren't going to talk about this, but we are going to mess with different formats of the show, maybe keeping some long forms, some lives, and then maybe a more digestible form of the show.
Well, yeah, short to the point. Like you get all the meat and potatoes right then and there. There's no kind of water cooler talk. And so hopefully there'll be a mixture of both or a little bit of everything for, whoever wants to listen. So that's what we're aiming for.
And the goal, is to obviously we want to keep some stuff more real time and be able to get some stuff out that doesn't take 5 days to compile and edit. And so that's what we're going to be trying to do, coming out with more formats of the show and making it higher production quality. And hopefully that shines through. If so, leave us a comment. If not, keep it to yourself. That's how I feel about it.
So give us 5 stars. Thank you.
Yeah, please leave us a rating and review.
I think you should be the one to open this topic up because years past, you've kind of gotten it done on early season bucks here in Oklahoma. So why don't you go ahead and explain our topic for today?
Well, it's funny talking about early season because October 1st is considered early season. Now, when you start to go hunt Western stuff, like August is considered an early season or September is early season. But for a couple of people from Oklahoma, it is early season. So today we're going to be talking about all things, let's just call it first 20 days of October hunting. And I think there's a lot of different topics that are kind of sprinkled in among that, which is early season hunting, kind of strategy, the October lull. Should you hunt October mornings? There's a lot of there's a lot of good meat and potatoes discussion there. And we have some experience with it and have shot some deer during that time period. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm sure we'll get into what our plan is the first half of October this year. But before we get into that topic, I do want to go into our first new segment of the podcast, which, speaking of keeping things first, is verse of the day. So I'm going to, I would say, I guess we should talk about a little bit of why I want to do that, which it's kind of self-explanatory in a way, but in everything that we do, we want to put God first. And so people that come into this podcast, maybe this is the only opportunity you get to encounter a piece of scripture during a week. So we're going to start our podcast, especially our long form podcast, with a verse of the day, talk about it for a couple minutes, and then we'll get into that kind of the meat and potatoes of the show. So I'll read this one here, which I sent it to Jake too, but it is 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. And it says, "So my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable, always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless." And that's the New Living Translation. So if you had to talk to a buddy, Jake, what does that mean to you?
Well, all I know is you sent me the King James version, and I was like, listen, I can't read this or comprehend it, so you're going to have to explain it to me, sir.
If it starts with therefore, it's probably not a...
Yeah, that's always fun. That's always fun to try to decipher. But, this is your VOD, so I want to let you take this away because I've only got to look at it for like 2 minutes, and I don't really want to speak on it unless I've given it some thought.
No, I get it. You want my perspective and me to teach to you. I got you right. I'm going to tell you right now. Be strong and immovable. I think you've probably heard this put in a few other different ways, like strong and courageous, always working enthusiastically for the Lord, for nothing you do. This is something I think I've struggled with a little bit, working enthusiastically for the Lord. And for me, that means in everything that you do in work, you do it as you're working for God. And there's some people that I've worked for, there's some situations that I've worked in that I'm like, the last thing that I want to do is a good job for you right now, and I have to kind of take that back to a perspective of I do good work because of, the one that's done work on me, not because of, the person that I work for, or the work that I'm doing. Cause I feel like in life, there's a lot of, and you might feel this with like the mowing stuff now, is there's a lot of work that you do for the sake of doing work and making money, not because you enjoy it, but you should still do it because as if you're doing it for the Lord, because how you work is a representation of what he's doing in your life. So that's just how I think of it. Maybe that's a dumbed down version of it, but if I don't
I mean, I think
understand
it
it,
needs to be dumbed down because that's right up my alley. You know what I mean? No, but I get it because there's some jobs that you're like, man, you're working, you're like, this ain't worth it. Like, I underbid this completely, but you're still going to do it. Like, you're making $1,000 on top of this just because it's like, I mean, that's what you would do if you're working for him directly, and
hmm
you're basically doing that to show other people his way through you, if that makes any sort of sense, right?
exactly.
So that's just where I would put it.
Yep. I think we minister to people in every aspect of our lives, in our work, the way we act, the way we walk, the way we talk. And so work is just another form of worship. So that is the verse of the day. And we'll start to try to open up every one of the long form podcasts with that piece of scripture. So there might be like 9 people shaking their hands in the Bible Belt right now, like, I just want to hear deer hunting. Well, we're gonna
Well,
get to that
listen,
too.
yeah. So these transitions will get smoother as we go. This is literally our first run at this new whole
Format. Yeah.
uh format that we're trying to do. So hopefully it will get smoother. Transitions will be better. So just kind of work with us a little bit and give us a little bit of grace here. But just to, I guess, switch to the deer hunting side,
Mhm.
Christian, what is the biggest, I don't want to say stipulation because I don't know if that's the right terminology, but like what is the biggest upside and downside of Oklahoma hunting in your opinion, and then the general opinion throughout the hunting community, do you think?
I would say the biggest upside of Oklahoma hunting for me in early October has been a corn feeder. That's the biggest one for me. Um, I guess what do you mean exactly by that question?
What is the biggest, I guess, upsides to hunting October, and what's the biggest downsides for you?
The biggest downsides is similar to what we talked about earlier in kind of the intro. Is it is a time plagued by a bunch of heat. I would say I wouldn't say little deer movement because I think there is a lot of deer movement in that time, but I think in condensed areas. And the biggest upside, I think, is if you can similar to most times of the year, but I guess different in this way. If you can get close to bedding areas in early October, I think you can really do a lot of good, especially with some mature bucks. Now, that might only be on the other side of 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes in the evening, but I think there is real opportunity in October to shoot some mature bucks, or especially early October or mid October. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, just to kind of bring it in and start it at the most basic of level, right? Like early October, that's most people throughout the country is going to go to that bed to food pattern. And if some people don't know what this is, I know we're kind of talking and starting off really basic, but it's just where they bed and go to sleep at, whether that be secure any type of security cover, and then they will go to feed. And if you're in any type of ag country, that could be beans, standing corn, anything along that nature, where they'll just be usually hitting that corn in the evening, feeding all night, and then coming back to bed in the morning, right? And so that will look different from different parts of the state. Like if you're in ag country, it'll be just what I explained, and if you're in non-ag country, that could be something kind of like where we hunt in Oklahoma on public, where it's like there's no ag around. So their bed to food pattern per se could just be any type of security cover to some sort of oak flat or some sort of natural browse. And then you kind of try to play the same game, but it might just be, a smidge harder or a little bit less obvious, I should say.
Well, and I feel like the difference between the ag stuff, the bed to food, and let's just say more mountainous stuff where it's more like browse or relying on like acorns dropping. It's like it goes from like bed to food, and like in my mind, it's like bed and food. Like they're one and the same, right? Like those a lot of times they're bedding in an area where they could literally not even stand up and probably eat acorns on the ground because there's so
Yeah.
much good cover on the ground. So I think that does kind of change the equation in early October, and it kind of makes the game a little harder because I do think there is like a little bit of a depressed deer movement. But that kind of gets us into our first kind of point here, which is you're gonna hear it over social media all the time this time of the year is people talking about the lull, the October lull, more specifically. So maybe we can just quickly define that in our own words. And if you don't believe in it, you don't have to find it too deeply. But just generally
Yeah.
speaking,
It's kind of like the
what
moon, right? like
Yeah.
moon phases and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
What would you call the lull?
man, I don't know, because I feel like it's a lot of different things like intertwined. You know what I mean?
I
And
think it means
so
something different to each person too.
kinda, yeah. Like some people it might be, oh, it's too hot, so they don't move as much. Or some people it might be, if you're hunting public or whatever, it might be the amount of pressure that property gets, and so they go back into some thick security cover or over the next ridge, and then they're just hard to find, or they like to really uh, get up into that thick stuff where you gotta either go in and find them, or if you try to hunt those fields, it's probably too dark by the time they work their way out of that little thicket and work their way actually into the field, right? And so it could be just in short terms. It could be like the weather. It could be the pressure. It could just be that they're going nocturnal. But I think the nocturnal is either due to the pressure or the hotter temperatures or something along those lines. But what's your thought on that?
I I think as like maybe it's just a human issue, but I think of it as like a hunter issue too. Is I think when things don't go right, we immediately look for like terms or like reasons why things are the way they are, and
Right.
that's kind of the way that I think of the October lull. Is October 15th when it's still 85 degrees on the high. Is that the best hunting conditions in the world? Or is that better than November 7th when the high is 52? No, it's not. It's just a different set of circumstances. And I like the labeling of the October lull is there decreased deer movement? Maybe. I was reading some articles earlier about it. One of them was on Meat Eater, and it said that the deer movement in October is pretty much just kind of a linear ramp throughout the whole month, meaning it gets better and better and better and better, obviously up until the like, right at the peak of the pre-rut.
Mhm.
But I just to put it really bluntly is like I'm not going to say I don't believe that there's depressed deer movement, but I don't buy into the hype of the October lull. And the reason of that is I think it keeps too many people out of the woods during that time period. That's
Couldn't
just
be
kind
a
of how I feel about it.
I mean, it might not be a bad thing, but with the October lull, like there's usually I think it's just really situational, right? Like, yeah, it's probably a mixture of pressure. It might just be because the deer's hormones they're kind of dispersing right now and they're kind of trying to mark their own territory. So they're kind of sticking around maybe those places where they want to call home until they get either bumped out or beat out of their current little spot. If you guys are anything like us, you love being in the deer woods and chasing big bucks. But there's another part of you that has that itch to chase other big game species.
If you've ever dreamed of chasing black bear, mule deer, or moose, Alberta, Canada is the land of opportunity for these adventure-style hunts.
Each year, hundreds of first-time visiting hunters from around the world come to Alberta for the options, quality, and accessibility that the land offers.
With over 1,800 Boone and Crockett entries and endless possibilities of taking multiple species on a single trip, Alberta is truly a paradise for a big game hunter. This is why we partnered up with the Alberta Professional Outfitters Society. To check it out, go to apos.ab.ca and click Find an Outfitter. From there, you can browse all the different big game species and hunting styles that fit with what you want out of the hunt.
Or you can send a free hunt inquiry through the Follow the Lead tool, and the outfitters who have what you are looking for will reach out to you directly.
So make sure to check out apos.ab.ca to learn all about hunting in Alberta and get connected to the right outfitter for you.
The lull is kind of situational for like different people, right? Because if you're on public, it could be just due to the pressure and different people bumping them around. And so you're seeing less movement, right? Where you originally thought you would see movement.
Yeah.
And or maybe where you got a lot of trail cam pictures. And on private and especially on ag related places, whether that be, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, anything with like the simplified version of bed to food, where you have like some sort of monocrop and then you have a strip of timber or maybe an oxbow or maybe just a overgrown field. And you're like, okay, they bed there, they eat here, right? In October and super hot, days or maybe mornings, the hunts might be limited, but there's also that I don't want to call it a rumor, but like there's that stipulation or whatever where you don't want to hunt October mornings because you'll blow all the deer off the crops and uh you'll spook your target buck onto the neighbors or whatever the reasons are. But that might be true during your private hunting, but if you're on public, and especially kind of maybe out of state, or even if you have to drive like a couple hours on a weekend, you're giving your time up there. It's probably best to hunt those mornings so you don't cut your hunt time in half.
Yeah, I wouldn't be willing to give up an October
No.
morning. Now, this is this is what's tough about generalizing is everybody's situation is completely different. If you're hunting a particular target buck that you think you can kill on a good weather pattern, or you don't want to kill access and or you don't want to mess up accessing a spot in the morning, that makes sense to me. But when somebody doesn't have a particular like target buck, like this is the one that I'm going after, and they're not hunting the October lull or they're not hunting October mornings, I don't really understand that, you know?
Well, the mornings would be the coolest time of the day,
Yeah.
throughout October generally.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that?
I would. I'm a morning person though. Like for deer hunting,
Yeah.
I love mornings way more than I love evenings. And I can tell you I the last 2 years, not this year because I didn't go, but I shot a buck opening morning last year in a bedding area. I shot one in 2022 right next to a bedding area opening morning. Both of these bucks were dead before 7:30 in the morning. And both mature bucks too, one 5.5 and one 7.5. And we've shot many other bucks I was thinking about on public in the first half of October. Justin doing it last year with that video we just released. That was a
Yeah.
an October morning on a mature buck,
The one we found 3 years, I mean, granted, I don't know how mature he was, probably
probably a
at least
3-year-old.
3. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was thinking. He was, I think, October 6th, because I killed one October 16th in the morning out of that same tree.
exactly. So
But again, those aren't really, I mean, I guess the 2 you killed opening day were kind of more ag related, but the other spot were non-ag related. So, I mean, there's a difference there too.
well, I I don't know. I don't really believe in the morning in the staying out of the stand and not hunting October mornings. I don't hunt how the majority of, I guess you could say, hunting influencers hunt, which is like Midwest on bed to food patterns in October. That's not how we hunt. If I hunt them, it's either a bedding area, and in the previous life, it would have been over a corn feeder or in a mountainous area right next to a bedding area with nothing but just natural browse around. And I think it's kind of tough to give that message to a new hunter because you see these hunters like on you see people on social media kind of consuming every word of hunting influencers, you say, and there's guys that are staying out of the woods because like, well, it's the lull, it's not heated up yet, I'm not going to get out there. And it's like you could learn a ton the October 1st through 20th, but you're going to go in there with less information because you were scared to mess something up.
That is true. Like, so I don't know about you, but when I'm hunting public, especially where we hunt, the more rugged mountainous areas, I kind of try to use October. Yeah, do I want to kill a buck? For sure. I try to put myself in that position. But I also use that to try to find those new spots that we could potentially start using when
On a
things
rut
start
pattern.
heating up. And that usually consists of like trying to find the does, because if you can find the does early October, bucks are probably going to start trying to check in on those does, in the next couple weeks there. So it's just good to keep a tab on that, and especially if it has all the right other elements, whether that could be, some sort of funnel, kind of like that 2 mile spot or something like that, and just knowing that there's deer there and it's a good little travel place during the rut, and possibly it's far enough away and you don't see that much pressure. You can kind of monitor it uh as the season progresses, and you can kind of know before prime time really gets there, like the first cold front of November, when things really should start picking up, whether or not there's people going to be back there or not. You know what I mean? So you can kind of see what pressure there is, how the doe groups are back there, and whether or not it'd be a good little travel or pinch point or something for the rut in those places.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, one point, I'm gonna kill a buck out of that 2-mile rut funnel. That's gonna happen. I just wanted to
I
make that
mean,
known. That's happening.
it's a
Um,
it's a good possibility. We got historical data, and it's just a heck of a good spot. I think first cold front, there's definitely going to be things dying.
Yes, I just wanted that to be known to the podcast listeners. That's a prediction. I will get a shot at least on something back there. But yeah, like October in a lot of ways can be that scouting mission. And if you're hunting in a piece of 80 acres or an 80-acre piece or something small or something where you already have a target buck, I'm not saying use October as a way to trump through your bedding and find all that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're hunting maybe a bigger piece that you don't know a lot of things about, or you're hunting a piece of public, October is a great time to walk through, look for new signs like scrapes and rubs and stuff that's going on, and hanging cameras and checking and running cameras. A lot of the day can be spent doing that sort of stuff, inventorying and getting the inventory that you need to make moves for November. And that could be as much as just seeing what bucks are in the area or finding fresh buck sign and setting up cameras on that. And if you're not in the woods during the first 20 days of October because you're scared of kind of messing it up, you're going to go into the rut pretty, or the pre rut, pretty uninformed as a hunter. And I would rather jump a buck walking around than be like, well, I hunted this spot 5 years ago and I hope it's good again during the rut because I didn't want to mess it up. You know, I didn't want to go in
Here's the
there and
thing about
hunt when it was hot.
there's the thing about public is it's always changing. Maybe not every piece of public, but for the most part, I mean, I think it'd be kind of safe to generalize. Public is ever changing, whether that be ag fields and you find a really good bedding area with, like a somewhat uh secluded bean field or something like that. I found one of those in Kansas, and probably now it's probably filled with other hunters. You can't really control the pressure. You can't really control that sort of environment, or whether or not it's even going to stay public, or whether they burn, or whether that's a select cut or a clear cut. Because I mean, let's say you find a good select cut or clear cut in 3 to 4 years, like it's probably not going to be that good anymore, or it might turn into bedding when it used to just be like that's where all the bucks came to start grabbing that new growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you kind of got to stay on top, and it's like I think obviously time in the tree is what's going to kill a deer in November. So why wouldn't you try to get all that groundwork, done and over with?
I was just thinking about this too. I think the lull is like a perception thing where people, like you said, people aren't seeing as much, so they assume not as much is happening, right? And
Hmm.
I don't. I was thinking about hunting at Jake Ayer's spot, and I was talking to him today on the phone just for a little bit, talking about him coming down this weekend, what we're gonna do, and I was like, "Have you been hunting?" He said, "I've been hunting twice, and I've seen the same nice triple beam buck twice. He's a mature buck." And he said, "Yeah, he's been coming out about 10 minutes before
Does he need
light."
someone to shoot it? Because I'm down.
He's trying to shoot it, is what he was saying, but he said, "Yeah, he just, he's coming out of just a little, just a little too dark for me to be able to shoot him." And if you're hunting a piece of unpressured ground, it just hasn't been my experience that a buck just all of a sudden quits moving October 1 to 20. I just haven't seen that in my
Hmm.
experience. Like, and it doesn't even take a cold front. Like, a lot of those bucks are still on a similar pattern than they were when they had their velvet, and maybe that's my ignorance coming through, in Oklahoma. It's like I see mature bucks still hitting feeders. I see mature bucks still moving through areas. That's
That
what.
is true. Because unpressured ground, like one of my neighbors here in Northeast, they have pretty much unpressured ground, right? And he was sending me trail camera pictures. And granted, this is literally across the road from where I can hunt. It was like December 23rd, right? Rifle season's already been done through, muzzleloader. He already took 2 bucks off this specific property, but like other
Yeah.
than that, it doesn't get touched, right? And there's a lot of good bedding, a lot of good uh food over there. It was noon on December 23rd, and he had two really good shooters just eating under the feeder, and it's like that'd be pretty tough to see elsewhere.
I think pressure is everything, and I think the
So,
lull
do you
is
think
that.
heat or weather has to do with anything like that? Because when we run trail cameras on public, it'll be down like 3 sets of cameras down this old logging road, and it'll say it's 98 degrees or 103 degrees, and it'll be 1, 2 o'clock in the evening, and they're still strutting about. And we've seen one of probably the biggest buck we've ever gotten a picture of down there, and it's midday at 98 degrees. And so it's like they'll move around in the heat then. So what's so different about now?
I don't know. I I think deer move in the heat. Like, is a big mature buck gonna get up and run 700 yards before dark? No, probably not. But is he gonna stand up and browse around in his bedding area and kind of work his way to a food source before dark? Yeah, not every day, and probably not all the time. And every buck's different, so I don't want to say always, but I think they are moving. I think it's in a very condensed area. And I think weather has to do with that. Obviously, you wouldn't ever tell someone not to hunt a nice October cold front because that's where a lot of big bucks get killed. And
Mhm.
I think they're moving. And I think they're killable. But I think what I wanted to go back to was that pressure factor. I think you see okay. So talking about early season before October 1, you see all these bucks in daylight, right? On your cameras, you see them in bean fields, you see them moving around all the time. What changes on October 1? There wasn't a flip that switched in their head that just turned them from daylight movers to nocturnal. It's hunting pressure, right? And that can be on private, that could be on public. But those deer start to become more pressured and more nocturnal as October ramps. And then the pre rut and to the rut, they start becoming a lot more daylight movers because they have to. Their level of care for daylight movement, they don't give a crap because they're worried about getting laid. So,
Right.
um, that's just how I think about it. I think it's not a I think the lull has often been described as like they just quit moving, man. It's just something unexplainable. You know, it makes no sense. They just quit doing it. And I just don't think that's true. In my experience, it's just hunting pressure maybe puts them that way. And even then, even in high pressured hunting areas, I feel like they're still moving. That's
Mhm.
just, I think you just have to have a different strategy for that
And I
part
think
of
it's more
October.
condensed and making them feel more safe from for where they're at, right? So, like, let's bring it back to where we hunt in Oklahoma. There's native grasses, there's pines, and then there's some oak flats, some creeks running through. Where would you set up for a morning sit in that type of situation? Non-ag related, but you have oaks and you have security cover. And in this instance, what I described, those tall native grasses.
It's downwind of the bedding cover. That's probably where I would be. And that typically, um,
Be more specific, like downwind of the bedding cover, and explain your scenario right there. Like in between what?
I would just probably be on the edge of what I would call some sort of, I'm going to use the word impenetrable in quotations, some sort of extremely thick security cover, something that, because you kind of jump deer in native grasses when you're walking to the stand sometimes, and you're like, that didn't really feel like a really good like a secure bed. That kind of felt like a bed you took on the way somewhere else.
Yeah, but a
Um,
lot of that stuff that you have those instances in, that's where you see like all these doe beds, and you're like, that's just where they bedded,
exactly.
for that situation.
In the situation I would describe like my
And
ideal
it's usually not
scenario.
that thick. Sorry to keep cutting you off,
No,
but
it's not. It's not that thick, and that's why I say temporary beds, not like, "Oh my gosh, I just jumped him out of a really good security cover," because 'cause I'm not walking through that crap. For me, it would be something like a select cut that is maybe, 5 or 6 years old, has, really good foliage. Like, usually there's oaks coming back into that select cut too at that point, and
mm,
so there's good foliage on those leaves. The leaves haven't dropped yet, and that's mixed with down trees, native grasses coming up. It's basically the thickest, nastiest stuff you could find in a place that's pines and oaks. Because it's somewhat, if there's not native grass, all that stuff is really open and monotonous. And you're like, there's no way a good buck would bed in something like this.
but just those straight native grasses, as you know, so think of the Diablo spot, right? Where it's down this
Yeah.
super steep ridge, and at the very bottom it plateaus, and then it transitions from not like monotonous pines and obviously
And a
some oaks
creek.
scattered to and from, and you got that creek, but it transitions to just those straight native grasses. Now there's some big O like oaks within
That
there,
is a select
some
cut though.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure, but it isn't like all that like wiry, like thorny type of brush. It's literally just like for the most part those tall native grasses that kind of overtook it. And you've noticed this too. If you take 5 steps into that stuff down a trail, you'll see it's almost like this highway of just trail going here, trail going here, trail going here. And so they use that. And so at least for me, that's kind of what I try to key on. And even during the rut too, I'll try to set up, especially during early season, you set up as close as you can to that, because kind of like you said, depending on the pressure or whatever else it is, I mean, you can't expect them to move very far. And so, let's say you find a really good dropping oak, or for some reason, just like some sort of oak flat where maybe there's multiple good dropping oaks. And you're like, I don't really know which one to sit in because, that one's 45 yards away and that one's also dropping pretty good. It has some poop under it as well. Like it's all kind of consistent here. And also those oaks are ever changing, but could the bedding change? Yeah, it's going to change regardless. But if you find a spot with like in between those more closer to the bedding, but you try to get in the thickest stuff, that's like closer to the bedding, but also in between the bedding and those like that oak flat. I think that's where you want to be, because I think they're, at least what I've experienced, is they come out of that grass and then they transition into the thickest part of the timber, and then right at last light, that's when they go around to the oak flat. Because there's been multiple times last year, or maybe not last year, because we hunted, or I don't think we spent that much time in October up there, but the years prior, like we've hunted that spot for a long time, or I guess that piece of public in general. And you always set, whether that be down a scrape line, a rub line, or some sort of oak flat. You set in there, and you might see a couple doe, and all of a sudden it starts getting like pitch black, and all of a sudden you see another body work its way out of that timber, and you're like, "That's a big body. That's bigger than those does over there. I bet you that's a buck." And you're wishing for somehow, some way, there's 15 more minutes of shooting light, which there's not, because you're like, "I bet you that's a buck right there." But he showed up just just a little bit too late. So I think if you go into where they're transitioning from out of their bedding, I think that's how I try to at least cut them off theoretically.
Yeah. I think one thing I was thinking about too while you were saying that was, and this is kind of this is getting a little more mountainous and a lot less like blanket statement. This is getting more
Generalized,
specific.
but this is kind of what we know, though.
Yeah, this is getting specific. So take this with a grain of salt if you're an ag hunter. But I think too, when you're in that early season pattern and you're hunting a deer that is not moving maybe a ton, that's an opportunity, at least in my mind, to hunt an area that is a really good bedding area, maybe even within a good bedding area. And an example that I would use is a spot like the community center, that is a spot where you kind of are intruding into the bedding a little bit to be hunting in there, but there's bedding on multiple sides of you, where you could almost be in between two primary bedding areas, and there's more bedding area up on the ridge, and there could be some that you're maybe intruding on getting into your spot, but you're legit getting into like really good security cover, and knowing that those deer aren't moving a ton, giving yourself the most options for deer to come from multiple places, not just like one bedding area, right? Because you could have one coyote mess up that bedding area and the does run the other way, and you're like, okay, there went my whole hunt. Whereas if you have two or three kind of scattered around you, you're like, oh, they can come from there or there or there, giving yourself more options.
Also, this is pretty mountain specific too, but it seems like they can bed about anywhere, really. And they prefer some places more than others sometimes. But what would you say to the person where it's like, listen, maybe they're in this instance and it's like, I don't want to, I'm really worried about my access because I don't really know where they're bedding. So how would I go to access this? What's your take on that?
Oh, that's tough. On public, I'd say just do it. Like, because
that's kind of what I was wanting you to say.
On private, I totally get it, and I understand. Like, if somebody has a good buck on camera, you wouldn't want to just kind of throw away access. And I'm not saying to throw away your access on public either. I'm just saying if you want to kill a big buck, eventually you're going to have to get in where big bucks live and start risking it for the biscuit a little bit. And I would do that on public. I would not even in October, I wouldn't shy away from hunting the edge of a bedding area, like you said, a transition zone maybe. And what you're talking about is probably like a micro. It's more of like a feathering than it is like a big transition.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's like the thicker part of like the least enjoyable place to hunt within that little transition zone. Like, because listen, guys, we wouldn't be able to do the podcast if it wasn't for you all. So we just want to say that you guys are greatly appreciated, and thank you for following along each week.
And speaking of support, we are partnered with Out on a Limb Manufacturing, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, Matt and Chase are great, down-to-earth guys, and they make some of the best saddle hunting products out there. Whether you're looking for a set of climbing sticks or a mobile, lightweight, hang-on tree stand, or maybe you're even a one-sticker.
You mean tree Pilates?
Yes, tree Pilates. If you've been to the grocery store or the gas station lately, you know that Uncle Joe is doing his absolute worst to take all your money. That's why we need hunting gear that lasts year after year. And trust me, I've been rocking the same Out on a Limb Shakar climbing sticks for 4 years and the Ridge Runner 2.0 saddle hunting platform for a few years as well. This gear is built to last.
We can confidently say that Out on a Limb is the best bang for your buck.
And it's the best gear if you want to deflate a big old buck.
Ooh. Make sure you use code HNTA15 at outonalimbmfg.com for 15% off anything on their website.
So if you can show them the same support that you guys show us, please go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA15 for 15% off at checkout. Now let's get back to the podcast.
There's still going to be timber. There's still going to be, a little bit taller grass, but are they going to walk there? Maybe, but if you're a big old buck and you've already gotten bumped a couple times, like and you're going to go eat at this oak flat, are you going to, kind of walk where it's like not as wide open, or are you going to walk where you actually feel like you're secure? That's just kind of what I try to think of.
Because they care about access too. Yeah, they're going to use that thickest area too, which I think too, one thing I thought about is like, you might be hunting an area of low visibility at this time of the year versus like in a rut scenario when the deer are moving a ton. You can hunt an area that's a little opener or more open that gives you more options. And like, it's like, okay, I don't have to be within 100 yards because that buck's going to come sprinting down this creek anyway. So kind of who cares? Because I'm thinking about some areas that I've hunted before in this early season. Like they're thicker, right? There may not be 15 different shots for a bow. There might be a couple. And it's like, but I'm getting so tight to those bedding areas that if a deer does move past, it's either going to bust me or I'm going to get a shot. And that's how I think about it. And I think we've had pretty good luck and before October 20th, seeing and shooting bucks both in the mountains and in a different spot, call it Southwest Oklahoma, over just being in bedding areas and hunting over feeders. Like, I think it comes back in my mind to the pressure aspect, and it is hot. So there is going to be decreased deer movement in some sense. But I really think the more that we talk about it, the more I think about the pressure side of it. That's how it kind of makes sense in my mind.
So what about mornings for both instances, right? Like let's you can generalize, but I don't know if we touched this or not. I kind of forget, but why don't people most of the time hunt mornings? Why is that a thing?
I think it's access for the most part. And I get it. Like, there has been times, admittedly, where I'm going in to hunt a feeder and I check my cell camera on the way in and I'm like, oh, piss.
There.
Yeah.
You blow a couple doe. You're like, all right.
Yeah. So I've done that for sure. And that's bad. I would say bad access. I think from the Midwest side, it would be access as well, but in maybe a different way. Let's say you're hunting between two food sources and you are trying to get to a bedding area. You got to go through one of them to get in between them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say access is everything.
So how would you, let's say, granted, that's tough. That's tough because it's super situational, and you don't want to give bad advice to someone else that could be listening to this. So
I'm just telling you my experience. It's not advice.
What about if it is that is true. That is true. This is not financial lifestyle advice, nothing like that. But let's switch it to Midwest for a little bit, like ag country. Let's think of Kansas, southern Kansas, where we were hunting in 2022 or whenever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend someone hunting? And on public, would you recommend someone hunting mornings? And, just set the scene. There's a lot of bean fields, strip timber, maybe some tall grass fields. Would you recommend someone hunting that? And how would they go about hunting it? What's your opinion on that?
I'd be hunting deer on the way back to the bed in the mornings. And would I recommend hunting it? If I go anywhere that's not my house, I'm hunting a damn morning. I don't care what. if I'm not anywhere but if I'm anywhere but my house, I'm hunting in the morning. Um, just especially on a public land spot. And I think about the spot that we hunted in 2022 in Kansas, and there was beans on both sides of it. There was a big block timber on the south, big block timber to the north, and there
Are you
was
talking about
one.
Grandpa's stand where we found that very old stand?
No, not Grandpa's stand. The spot where we saw like 17 the first day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that piece of Weehaw.
there's big block timber on the south. There's big block timber on the north, and there's a creek that with small strip timber that connects the two. Right, and so I hunted that, and I caught some deer moving from south to north. I think they probably were just in the beans, and they got back in the timber to travel, and they were going from the south to the north. And I actually shot a doe and lost one in that spot. So that's probably what I'd be doing. And I don't know.
For morning sits, I'm gonna stop here right there. For morning sits, obviously, like it's more than likely, more times than not, at least for me, I'm not trying to set up among the fields where I can overlook the fields.
For
That's
sure.
that's an evening spot, right? And I think that's kind of what set us apart a little bit from Nebraska the second time we went down there. Because the first time it was that sandy corn, but we are mainly hunting cattle pasture. But the second time we went down there, we were really it wasn't as many ravines. It was mainly just primarily ag. So there was a lot of standing corn, but there was a little bit of alfalfa. And we were back in the timber for at least the morning sits. And the October lull, or heck, it wasn't even the October lull. It was
The late
was
September lull.
late September. So I don't even know if you consider that a lull or whatever, but we were in for a morning sit and we were right beside standing corn and we were probably, I don't know, 60 yards inside the timber on alfalfa. And we seen 11 or 12 doe and one little spike. And it's like, did we see the big boys? No. But I think for a morning sit in the thicket, like that's pretty darn good in my opinion for a piece you never even sat on before.
Oh yeah, for a piece you're going in blind to, except for e-scouting. And that's why I think it is so important to get super close to where you think maybe a mature buck is bedding. And there's not a ton of sign that's laid down already on October 7th. Maybe there is where some people are hunting. And I don't think those bucks are moving just a ton. So I think what you guys were doing by getting inside of the timber away from the ag a little bit and trying to catch that buck in a spot where he maybe was moving before it was dark was probably the right approach. But here's the thing, too. You could be in the right spot for this evening, and then the next evening he doesn't do the same thing or he decides to do something different. So it's like it's hard to take a lot away from, little short trips like that because you might have done the right thing and you just didn't do it the next day or something. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Or didn't do it while you were there. So I mean, if you had to take away, what do you think? What is your general thesis on, well, one October mornings and then the October lull? Like, should somebody stay out of the woods during that time period? Should you only hunt when you have a cold front? Like, how do you think about it?
I think you and I have very similar opinions on this, right? Like if it's you're private and if it's a small piece of private and you have hardly any pressure on that, like when I mean other pressure, whether that be, no lease mates or no family members that hunt it and you can kind of monitor who and who's going in there. Yeah, it'd probably be best, I guess, again, depending on how it's set up. Like if it's a lot of timber and a lot of bedding, you could probably go hunt mornings in there, at least somewhere. But if it's primarily like a big cattle pasture, maybe you got a feeder out there, a little food plot, something along those lines, and that's your only stand, and you got a big buck pattern. If he's coming in the mornings consistently, try to find a way to hunt that in the morning. If he's coming at every day at 8:30, if he's giving you a chance to kill him, absolutely go kill him. But other than that, if there's not really a reason to go in the mornings, probably don't need to burn that out. But public is a completely different 180. Like go hunt when you can and go do it to the best of your abilities and as I guess in the chili as you can. But at the same time, I wouldn't burn any PTO. I wouldn't take a week off
For sure.
just to go hunt and try to fill that early season tag. Like, will there be less pressure in the like less humans to battle? Probably, but I think you're kind of fighting a losing battle, right? Like I know God fed a lot of people with a couple fish and a couple loaves of bread, and if you give them, a 97-degree day and a pretty good little dropping oak tree, he could probably give you a big buck too. But I just kind of play smart on that end, especially when it comes to taking time off work, because that'll probably be a lot more beneficial to take that time off. Late October, first cold front November, something along those lines.
Well, and I think that's a good point too. There's a time to literally lay your pedal to the metal, and there's a time not to. I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, this is the best time of the year to shoot a good buck and you need to go balls to the wall. Don't go balls to the wall if you don't want to. But I'm saying if you want to hunt, don't let the October lull be the reason you're out of the woods. That's just the way I think about it, because I've done it before where it's like, hey, let's hunt every single weekend in October. And do you remember there was a time period where we were counting it up into the double digits of not seeing a deer between our group? Do you remember that?
Yeah, and that's like a group of 5 or 6 people for sure. No, I
You remember
remember,
that?
but that's also how we learned where to hunt, and
Oh yeah.
we X spots off, and we found even better spots. And like literally the first good cold front in November, we killed 293 inch or whatever it was, 290 some inches of bone in 2 days, the very first cold front, because we were in the spot we needed to be at, and we checked all those off come October or come November.
That is half the game, is figuring out where not to be. You know,
Yeah.
hunting on a spot that looks good versus hunting on a spot that is where the deer are. And
So
we've done a lot of that.
I think to give us, again, we're not no experts. This is just how we feel and our experiences, but just give a little bit of validity to why we're saying this. I think we need to kind of count like how many October bucks that we got, like just
Before
in
the
general.
20th. Before the 20th. Let's
Well, how many does Justin have? He has like what, 3, 4?
oh,
Quite a few.
let's start with us because I can think of ours a lot easier. I shot the 6x7 October 1st. Shot the Funky 10 last year, October 1st. I shot the 9-point that the deadhead you found. I shot that one on October 6th or 7th. That same weekend, I had shot a mature 8 at Jesse's that ducked me. That was October 5th. There's 4. What else? I'm trying to think of other bucks that I have. I shot the Funky
big 8?
buck. No, which big 8?
The one you shot in the face, the forehead.
Yep.
Was that in October?
That was in October, early October too. Yep. I shot the Funky buck, the weird handlebar looking one. That was October 17th. There's 6. And most of these are in the mornings. Most of them are too. What other ones do I have that I've shot in October? Before the 20th.
The one at Jake Ayers'?
Nope. That was in November. I think that's probably the bucks that come to mind, like the bucks that I can think of. So there's 6.
Bow hunting is a game of confidence, and the last thing that you want to be thinking about when you're at full draw on a giant buck this fall is, I hope this broadhead does its job. I prefer a reliable, fixed blade broadhead that's tough, flies great, and penetrates deeply no matter the arrow setup. And that's why us guys at the Hunter's Advantage shoot Vantage Point archery broadheads. And just a few weeks ago in September, I laid down my first bull elk with the VPA Omegas. In my mind, there's no reason to risk messing with a broadhead that can have a mechanical failure when you can get a super tough, reliable broadhead that's sharp and flies great, and you don't have to worry about the thing failing on you. And if you needed any other reason to choose VPA, they're 100% made in America. To check them out, go to vparchery.com and make sure to use code HA10 at checkout for 10% off your next pack of broadheads. Once again, that's vparchery.com and make sure you use code HA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
For me,
there's 6. Oh God, I don't think I have that many. I got the one October 16th. When was it? I think the AT&T buck was like,
that was in October.
It was in October, but it's probably like the 22nd or the 25th or something like that. But
okay,
we'll go ahead and count it.
Okay.
No. We're going to count it because like I think that's still
because I don't
the
know.
lull if it is like if there isn't a cold front or anything like that. There was that one.
There's 2.
There's that is 2. I swear I have more.
One you shot after my one out of the kill tree, the Booner kill tree. You shot that one.
Yep. That one was
before
16th.
the 20th. Yep.
That was the 16th.
There's 3.
I know there's a couple more. I know for a fact there is, but I cannot think of them. Again, it is 9:19 p.m. So
Okay,
we're just gonna
there's
leave it at
9.
that. There's a little
There's
bit of
9.
validity. Now, some would say, well, is that mature bucks? Is that mature
Oh,
movement?
yeah.
Some of them, I'd probably
Oh,
say
no.
at least 50%.
Oh, no, the majority of the ones I shot, there was only one out of those ones that I just described that wasn't over a 4-year-old. Every one of those, and a couple of those were 2 of those were 7.5-year-olds. One of them was a 5.5-year-old. So yeah, they were mature bucks. 3 of those coming from the exact same spot. Yeah, those were mature bucks. So
Just a little fun little topic. What is your opinion on shooting does early?
I love it. I love it. It's a great
So
opportunity.
you don't worry about it messing up your hunting opportunities for the future. You don't worry about it not being able to bring in big bucks if you kill that one doe in early October.
If you need to do doe management, you need to do doe management, and there's never a good time to shoot a doe in the sense of like messing up your spot. So you ask yourself, what's the best time to shoot a doe? Well, I don't like shooting them when they're already bred. That kind of, I've done it, and I'll probably do it again, but it's weird, and I don't really like it that much.
Weird feeling.
Yeah, so you don't like shooting them in the rut, right? Because they can bring in a buck. And what's the best time to shoot them? Early season, when it's hot, when there's not a ton of mature buck movement during daylight hours. So great time to shoot a doe. Great time to, kind of use that analogy of you're practicing before the test. A great time to practice before the test on your
I
aiming,
agree.
on your shot execution, on getting reps before big boy walks in front of you. You don't want to, at least me, maybe some more experienced hunter will say, I don't even need to pick up the bow. I'll just pick it up and shoot one. But I don't
You're
want the
talking to
first,
him.
yeah, I don't want to pick, I don't want
That's
the first
hilarious.
deer that I get into full draw on this year to be like, that is the mega. That's the one.
That
know?
happens. Yeah, no, I totally agree. But it's just one of those things like private. I've been in that bucket before where I'm like, oh, I don't want to shoot my doe because in this instance, all I have is like 1 or 2 good little doe groups that come through and they're fun to look at. So I don't shoot them. Other than that, I won't have anything to come by. So I've been guilty of that, but I do agree with you on the reps. Like you can't. The only way to practice killing deer is by killing deer. You know what I mean? Like I don't think you can really. You can do your best to mimic those type of situations, maybe get your heart rate up, maybe shoot competitions. But whenever you got a big boy standing, maybe 40 yards away from you, and you're like, ooh, he's 40. Like, I wish he was 25, but I still got to shoot. You know what I mean? Broadside, not really too nervous. You got to let it fly. But if you don't have those mental cues, those mental reps, what to do in your saddle, maybe that's different. You switched up stands. If you're not ready to execute, then it's going to be tough.
So how does that change your plan this year? Like, are you actively hunting does this early season?
Oh yeah. I went the other night and she came up straight downwind of me.
Did you see her?
No, but she let me know because she started yelling at me. She's like, I smell you, and then never seen her. So that was my doe hunting for October so far.
Do you think that was probably the matriarch doe in the full group that you were hunting? Because usually when you see a group of does where you're hunting, it's usually like 6 of them together or like 5 of them together.
I only heard one blow the whole time, and she's the only one I heard kind of run off. She couldn't have been 30 yards to the left, but back there it isn't brush hogged yet, so it's like, and that's kind of why I went because I was like, there's not much bedding here, so maybe they're bedding all in this grass right here. So I tried to sneak in. Marginal wind. There was one little spot that they sometimes funnel out of, and it was kind of blowing. Oh, just slightly might be hitting it, and I think she just got close enough and downwind where she definitely smelled it. So
Was she pretty close when she blew?
like 30 yards. Yeah, but I
Okay,
just couldn't see. She hadn't stepped out into where it was clear yet. So
she got you.
she picked me off.
When I went the other day, so I'm hunting, like I said, this stuff that's rocky. There's cactus. There's a bunch of cedars. So like you're literally, in a lot of senses, hunting these openings that are like 15 yards wide and 15 yards long. And you're like, okay, I'm not even going to be able to get into full draw if a deer walked in this. So there's this cactus like patch and these cedars. And I'm like, okay, I know there's deer in here. I've scouted in the spring in here and I jumped some deer and was looking for sheds. I took one step off of the hiking trail and I'm not exaggerating, one step off of the hiking trail, and I stepped on like a little bit of a cactus, and it went crunch, crunch, and I hear, and I was like, if I was 3 feet to the right on that hiking trail, they would not have cared. The second I started to intrude into where they thought they were safe, they're like, just took off. And dude, that early season doe hunting down here is about to drive me freaking nuts because you can't. I'll give you a little bit of the rules. This fast forward 5 minutes if you don't want to hear me complain. But this place that I'm hunting, you have to hunt more than 100 yards off the trail. You can't hunt 100 yards from private border. You have to be at least 100 yards away from that. And there's no still hunting. So if you see a doe, you can't walk up on it or sneak up on it through the cedars and shoot it. You have to be in a stationary position and wait. So yeah, it's weird. And it's because there's hikers and stuff like that. I guess they don't want to see someone optically sneaking up on a deer or shooting it. So when you like kind of take away the being 100 yards off the trail and 100 yards off a private, it like handcuffs you where you can hunt. Like you can only hunt, like there might be a 400 acre block that you could hunt, and it turns it into like 50 acres that you could hunt. You're like, this sucks. So that's what I've been dealing with, is trying to get on a spot that it's not even, I'm not hunting the best spot. I'm hunting the legal spot. And that makes it tough because I've had does at like 60 that I could have snuck in closer on probably. And I'm like, well, if I do that, I'm going to be 60 yards from the private fence. And if I shoot a deer, I'm going to get in trouble for it. So, and did I tell you that my first hunt in there, I went to go hunt and somebody had stolen my trail camera? Had stolen my trail camera, set up a blind 30 yards from my trail camera, and then put a feeder 75 yards away from there. And I was like, awesome. This is going to be a great season. That's immediately
it sounds like you had yourself a free setup right there.
Oh man. I was on the phone with Mason when because he was hunting that evening, and he called me. He's like, asked me if I saw anything. I said, yes, he stole my camera and then set up a blind right next to it. And he goes, I would have cut that blind in 100 pieces. And I said, yeah, I would. I thought about it, but I'd be lying if I didn't. But I looked at that blind and I was like, my luck, that won't even be the guy that did it. Who'd be like, dude, what the heck? Like, there wasn't a camera in here when I showed up.
Comes waddling out there with his son, thinking they're going to have a great day.
Oh my gosh.
Their blinds all destroyed.
I've cut his blind into 58 pieces. Yeah, no, I am not going to do that. But it did make me mad because I was like, dang, dude, that was a nice camera and it's gone now. So I'm trying to get those 2 does out of the way, dude. But with the no still hunting and the borders and no trees to hang in, I'm like,
just Texas in general, it sounds like.
It took a place that was thousands and thousands of acres and made it like very unhuntable. And also I'm kind of I don't like knowingly doing something wrong. So I'm not going to go sit on the fence line where I know I could shoot a doe, because my luck, I'll get in trouble for it. I've already ran into the game wardens like 3 times this season. So,
oh, really?
Well, yeah, I got checked for antelope, and then I got called by that game warden in Nebraska for muley. So I'm kind of done with the whole talking to law enforcement this year. So I'm just going to do it right. But that's October. That's what I'm going to be doing. When's your next trip?
So we're heading to southern Oklahoma on Thursday. So we're driving down Thursday morning. Hopefully get a hunt Thursday evening. And then,
are you going to ride with them? You drive by yourself?
Okay. No, I'm driving myself. And going to be there till Sunday night, but hopefully I can get it done earlier than that, where I can have a good weekend to myself. But we'll see. I don't know. It's not going to be anything I'm going to expect to get one down. I mean, if a doe steps out, for sure going to take that. But it's mainly just trying to nitpick some spots and set out some cameras, because we haven't did that yet since our September and all that stuff's been hectic. We've been working towards that basically all summer. So yeah, it'll be good. It's going to be like a little scouting mission, but I'm going to get in the chili. That's all I'm saying.
So should I drive 17 hours to hunt antelope, or should I go deer hunting?
I already told you what I think you should do. I think you should go deer hunting.
I just think that antelope tag is gonna sit there, and I might as well put it into the bowl and start boiling it for soup if I don't go hunt in October.
I mean, you do what you want, but I mean, I just think that I don't know. Like, I think there's going to be opportunity, like in the later season too.
To go hunt antelope.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, because why not try to tag out first and then go back up there instead of driving 17 hours and
One way.
yeah, that's what I mean. So I just try to knock the closest stuff out first because it's like you're going to hunt either, whichever one you choose, and so you might as well knock the closest stuff out first.
Well, and I'm in the mindset now. It's like where I'm not necessarily concerned about filling every single one of my buck tags. I just want to shoot a good one. And so,
you know where to do that, and you know where I'll be. That's all I'm saying. Plus, it'll be nice for you to hunt, like come down there and hunt public again because you're usually done and over with. You're done and over with usually before like we really get going down there. So,
yeah. Well, I was thinking about that today. I was like, man, I really want to go hunt my private. And then I was like, have I hunted any private this year? And then I thought about it. I was like, no, I've hunted like 25 days and I've not hunted a single piece of private. It'd be nice to step on foot on private. But then I'm like, no, I want to kill a mountain buck. I want to kill a mountain buck.
There you go. Look at those. I can see those chest hairs start popping out of your shirt right now. You know it?
Getting big. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Like go where there's potential, right? Like you know what's at your private. I know what's at my private. That's why I don't like stepping foot on there when I don't need to. You know what I mean? Like
there's a nice doe group.
There's a beautiful doe group there, and hopefully I ruin that whole family by the year's end. But yeah, I'm going to public, and I think knowing beforehand, hey, look, you're going to get your butt because where we hunt, it's the more mountainous part, as we've said multiple times already in this podcast. And if you're a longtime listener, you're like, shut the heck up on that description. But it's true. And so, like, compared to the other regions of Oklahoma, like, there's a lower deer density here. And so, with that, like, it's going to be thicker with the low deer density. And you're not going to see as many bucks when you go to sit, right? Like even during the rut, like sometimes we're like, okay, it's day 3. I haven't seen a buck. But here's the thing. You're only looking for that one. I would rather go where I for sure am going to have quality over quantity rather than seeing, oh, nice, I seen 12 bucks and a little dink. Great hunt. Sooner or later that gets old. You can go places and do that, right? You can go to other parts of Oklahoma and easily see that. But I want to go where if I hear a twig snap or if I hear something, I want to be like, that could be either 190 or it could be a little video fawn. I don't know, but that's where I want to go. And I think if you know that going into it beforehand, and those situations specifically where it's like expect to not see anything, it's going to help you mentally. So I just think it'll be more fun knowing that, hey, I'm probably not going to see anything, but when I do, it'll all be worth it.
I just hope my one stick comes in before then. That's the only thing I need.
Oh no, you have to carry an extra 2 pounds.
Oh no, I want my one stick so I can. Yeah. You know why I want my one stick? The reason I want it is so I can just go scout and be like, oh, I do have my stuff to get in a tree. I just want to go scout and be like, oh, I could get in that if I wanted to, and then get up in it.
Still, the heaviest part of my whole bag is my camera arm.
Oh yeah,
that's a problem.
I bet. Yeah, that is a problem. But
problem for another day.
A problem for another day. Well, I think we hit that one. Hopefully what we said made even a lick of sense. Take it if it applies to your situation or don't. That's completely up to you. But that's our thoughts on October. Kind of our plans for the next couple weeks is to go hunt some public and try to shoot some mid-October, early October bucks. But I think with that, we've got a couple housekeeping things. There's a couple new hunting videos on our channel, so go check those out. And we should have a couple more coming out in the next, I will just say, couple weeks, because I got one I'm editing, Jake's editing another, and those will be coming. And we appreciate the love of them getting out in the hunting videos. They've been getting a lot more views than they have in the past, so thank you guys. And make sure to leave us a rating or review if you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are listening to it on audio, we've put a lot of, honestly, time and money into enhancing it on video. So check it out on YouTube if you want to see the full video version and all the animations and stuff that we're working on. So thank you guys. And you got anything else, Jake?
I think that's it. Now, I feel like we were kind of all over the place during this one, but we will get settled down. We will catch a flow. So just again, bear with us on this whole new revamp because we are trying. So we'll just leave it at that. Jesus,
Yes, sir.
love you.
All right, catch you in the next one. Bye.